Let's take a moment to reflect on the teachings of Jesus and the wisdom of God, not just as historical or religious concepts, but as guiding lights in our everyday lives. Whether you come from a place of faith, curiosity, or even skepticism, there is something in these teachings that speaks to the deepest parts of the human experience: love, forgiveness, kindness, and faith. From the beginning of creation, God's relationship with humanity has been one of love, justice, and mercy. The Old Testament tells us of his commandments, his faithfulness, and his desire for righteousness in the world. But it was through Jesus that we saw these divine principles lived out in the flesh. Jesus, the Son of God, walked among us, teaching through parables, miracles, and his own actions. His life wasn't one of principal power or material wealth. He chose humanity, service, and love over all else. One of the most powerful teachings of Jesus is love. In Matthew 22:37, when asked about the greatest commandment, Jesus answered, "Love the Lord, your God, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it: love your neighbour as yourself." Think about that for a moment. If every person truly loved their neighbour as themselves, how different would our world look? Wars, conflicts, and divisions often stem from selfishness, greed, and hatred. Jesus calls us to something radically different: a life of selfless love, where we put others before ourselves and see every person as a reflection of God's image. Another key teaching is forgiveness. Jesus didn't just tell people to forgive, he demonstrated it. When he hung on a cross, suffering unjustly, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That kind of forgiveness is not easy. It requires letting go of anger, choosing peace over revenge, and trusting that God's justice is greater than our own. Yet Jesus calls us to forgive not just once, but 70 times 7 times, meaning endlessly, just as God forgives us. Compassion was another cornerstone of Jesus' ministry. He healed the sick, welcomed outcasts, and dined with sinners. His kindness wasn't reserved for the wealthy or the righteous. It extended to everyone, especially those society ignored. The parable of the Good Samaritan is a perfect example. A man is beaten and left for dead, and while religious leaders pass him by, a Samaritan, someone considered an enemy, stops to help. Jesus teaches us that love knows no boundaries, and true faith is expressed through acts of kindness and mercy. Faith and trust in God are also central to Jesus' teachings. In Matthew 6:25-34, he tells us not to worry about tomorrow, because God provides for the birds and the air and the flowers of the field. How much more will he provide for us? This doesn't mean life will be without struggle, but it does mean we are never alone. God walks with us through our challenges, offering strength and peace beyond understanding. Another vital lesson Jesus taught was humility. In a world where status, wealth, and power often define success, Jesus flipped the script. He said, "Whoever wants to be the first must be servant of all." True greatness in God's eyes is not about how much we have or how important we appear. It's about how we serve others. Jesus himself washed the feet of his disciples, a task reserved for the lowest servants, to show that no act of service is beneath us. Finally, Jesus taught about the kingdom of God. He spoke of a reality where love triumphs over hatred, where the last shall be first, and where faith, not material wealth, defines a person's worth. He reminded us that our lives here are temporary, but our souls are eternal. His resurrection was the ultimate victory over sin and death, showing us that through him we have hope beyond this world. So what do we take from all this? The teachings of Jesus and God are not just ancient words, they are living truths. They challenge us to love more deeply, forgive more freely, serve more humbly, and trust more fully. They remind us that we are never alone, that we are deeply loved, and that we are called to reflect that love in everything we do. As we go forward today, let's ask ourselves, how can we live out these teachings in our own lives? How can we be kinder, more forgiving, more loving? How can we trust God more, even in difficult moments? If we strive to embody these lessons, we will not only transform our own lives, but also the world around us. Thank you.